Hello, I'm Carol Adams, Professor of Accounting, and delighted to be speaking to David Atkin, CEO of cbus, the Australian superannuation fund for the construction, building and allied industries. David was also for many years the Australian representative of asset owners on the UN Principles for Responsible Investment, the PRI board. And I've had the pleasure of working alongside cbus for many years, developing their integrated reporting approach. And today we're going to reflect on that journey that cbus has gone through, what it means for investment and responsible investment, and also what the UN SDGs mean for asset owners. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Carol.
Now, my research has shown that the process of developing an integrated report, that process of working through developing the value creation statement in particular, makes quite a big difference for organizations. And I know at cbus it involved not just looking at internal documents and the strategic plan, but also many conversations between the reporting team and through Rod Masson at cbus, conversations with all the relevant executives and discussions at board level and with governance people as well. So I wonder if you could tell us what the big change is from your perspective as CEO, how it's focused things at cbus, what it's meant for the strategy, and how it's informed board discussions.
So thank you, Carol. So integrated reporting has been an area that we've been working on now for several years, and we got into integrated reporting really as a result of our interest and focus on being a responsible investor, and our recognition that for financial markets and in terms of the investment world, often we were seeing short-term focus and risk not being properly assessed in all of its dimensions. It was too narrow, and that mattered from our perspective because our membership are with us when they join us when they're 16, and hopefully take us into retirement and beyond. So it's over several timeframes that we are investing their money, and we know that there are many externalities that are not properly priced by the markets, and we know that there is the potential for many investments to be impacted by environmental, social or governance factors that have not been properly understood by the companies or by the investors that have a material impact on returns ultimately. So I start there because that was how we got into integrated reporting. Therefore, given that, we've got an important role to play in trying to re-engineer the way in which financial markets work so that it's actually aligned with the long-term beneficiaries who our members are, and not so much around all the intermediaries that are sort of earning a living along the way, or rent seekers as they've been described, where often it's based around short-term profitability because it's around short-term interest. And so if we wanted to have companies have more of a long-term perspective, and we were looking for quality thinking in the companies that we invest in, and also recognising that, there were we were looking to advance this argument around being more holistic in your thinking, in your strategy. That's when we came to integrated reporting, where that the integrated reporting was around companies, organisations being very clear about who it's serving, what value they're trying to create for who they're serving, how they go about creating that value, what kind of accountability structure do they put in place to make sure that the the plans that they have and the claims that they're making are actually fair income or real, and that there is a process of reporting, a process of transparency. From an investor perspective, that seemed to us to be a really good way of identifying organisations that wanted to be profitable, not just next week, next year, next 5 years, but in the longer term. Those companies that had thought through value creation, had thought through a long-term horizon, and therefore understood that there were a range of non-mainstream financial aspects that are often not incorporated into traditional business strategy, would be the better companies for us to invest in. So I know this is a long way to answer your question, but and so if we thought it was good for companies to adopt integrated reporting, which requires you to be looking at value creation across all of its dimensions, those 6 capitals, shouldn't we adopt that ourselves? It would make us a better advocate. And so on that basis, we then got into it. And then, we quickly realised that it was not going to happen overnight, and that it was an iterative process, a learning process for our organisation. The value for integrated reporting for us is that it's, as an organisation, not just as an advocate, is that it's required us to come out of our silos. Like any organisation, we've got deep areas of expertise. But by having a framework where you are saying, well, what's our purpose? Who are we serving? How do we know what they want? Okay, now that we know what they want, how are we actually realising that? And across all of the dimensions of value creation, then we began to see that there were, we were seeing the opportunity through true integrated reporting to be more effective in the way that we delivered value. And it meant that we joined the dots. And it made everyone much clearer about our purpose, why we were doing what we were doing, and then think more dimensionally, in all of its dimensions about how we then met that purpose. So all of these things are a rich part of what we do, but the integrated model just enables you to join all of the dots and see where we can push harder or actually create an enhanced value by putting two pieces of domain expertise together. So it is broader than just investments, but clearly investments is a very important part of what we do. And so certainly what you talked about is very, very true, which is that at the beginning, in a way, we were sort of retrofitting to the integrated reporting model to then, truly embracing and saying, okay, this now needs to inform the way we plan and then program our activity, our work activity for the year.
Now, David, I know that we've talked before when we've been discussing the CEO statement for the integrated report. We've talked before about discussions in the boardroom and how we have been influenced by integrated reporting. And I wondered if you could just talk about that a moment. You've particularly spoken before about how the notion of 6 capitals, the multiple capitals, have focused the discussion around strategy.
Yeah. So we, as we got into applying integrated thinking into our organisation, and let's be clear, integrated reporting is an output. The value is the actual process of integrating the way the organisation thinks about its role and purpose and what it does and so forth. And so clearly the board, with management, but the board is kind of setting the strategic appetite for the management team. And so therefore, as you filling in the picture about what the choices are that needs to be made and for a board, you do need to think about long-term planning. You do need to think about the opportunity to create value across more than one dimension. Again, the 6 capitals for us was a really natural way, frankly, to understand our role in manufacturing, the creation of capital, the way that we thought about the natural environment, the way we thought about IP that we create. So we've structured our board planning days around those 6 capitals, and then we've sort of been identifying sort of the various, whether it's the regulatory environment or what's happening in the economy or demographic behavioural changes. We've thought about it in the context of the 6 capitals, so applying back each of those areas to value creation across those 6 capitals, and that's just really helped us be more, I think, coherent, identify where the gaps have been, identify where the leverage points could be, and also just create a common, and this is probably the most important thing, get everyone on the same page. Everyone is very clear about what it is that we're trying to do and why, and what the outcomes we're trying to seek from the board through to the executive team, then down into, across the organisation, and then across our multi-stakeholders. So that's been a very important process.
Thank you for that. Yes, I do remember when we first started developing the value creation statement that there were different views even about what the value being created was and for whom. So it's great to have that brought together so that everybody's on the same page and really.
Well, sorry, Carol, that's a really good point, because part of this is actually what it draws. Everyone thinks they know. Everyone thinks they're on the same page, but actually, sometimes you're not. Sometimes people understand things in different ways, and so again, going through this process again, just make sure that there's clarity and that everyone understands the meaning of things, and it's the same meaning.
And everything you do now is in the context of the value creation statement. It guides everything you do now that it's there and it's agreed by everybody. In Australia and the UK, universities are increasingly assessed on the impact of the research that they do. And, my research has been in this field of integrated reporting and the sustainable development goals and how this changes what organisations do and need to do. And I wondered if you could say something about why engage an academic to guide you through this process, rather than any other consulting firm, for example. So this is something which will be of interest, I think, to others, because this is the way that we're asked to go with our research to make a difference and to have an influence.
Oh, well, we just go where we think the brightest thinking is. When it seems natural to us that if there's new thinking coming out of academia that helps us do our jobs better, then why wouldn't we embrace that? And this is an evolutionary, the way in which investing is occurring and the way the market is thinking about, the market players are thinking about these issues is very much changing. And we talked about, in the early 2000s, this was all about having, an investment option that was, for those people who might want to pick something that was, meant they felt better. But we're now here, 2020, where everyone understands that this is a mainstream issue. And that's come about through, collaboration with academia who've been promoting the thinking, collecting the information, feeding it back. Lots of debates about, this is where is this going to create value? Isn't this just going to cost members returns? And again, academia has played a very important role. The studies that have been performed across the globe have provided increasing evidence that actually spending effort in this space actually provides better outcomes, as just an example. So that seems very just a natural thing to us, and long that may continue, because I think, well, in fact, actually, I think there's the opportunity for the financial services sector and academia to better collaborate is something that's in front of us. And I actually think that there's plenty of opportunity to improve curriculum so that we're getting people being who are coming out of the university sector who aren't not just thinking in a very narrow sense. The best investment teams are those that have cognitive diversity and have different domain experience, and when you bring all of that together, you make better decisions as a result. So I think the way we train, we really want, this is sort of perhaps going on a tangent, Carol, but when we're out there recruiting, we want to see really smart people with different disciplines coming into our environment, because we know that they've got insight and expertise that when you put it all together, we do make better decisions.
Mm. So. Well, that's good to hear, and I have certainly enjoyed working alongside cbus on this project, the integrated reporting and thinking about the SDGs. I think that covers the main things I wanted to cover. Is there anything you think we've missed that we should cover, or that you want to cover?
Well, just perhaps to go back to a question you asked on COVID-19. So if we take an example of integrated thinking, we're clearly in an environment where, we had to, as everyone did, quickly switch into a virtual environment, and all of that kind of had to work. We had challenges around the government's making changes that would enable people who are under financial hardship to be able to access their parts, up to $20,000 of their superannuation funds. So there was a liquidity question that we had to solve for, which we have. And then we had this issue about, well, what's our role in the recovery process? Because our members need to be in work. We want an economy that's healthy, and we know that we've just basically comatosed our economies by the response to COVID-19 from a health point of view. And so we've brought our corporate affairs, our advocacy teams, our member services team, and our investments team together, and they have been looking to find investment opportunities for us that can make a meaningful contribution to employment in the next 12 to 24 months. And we've been able to prioritise that, and our returns clearly remain important. But there is opportunity out there, and by just reorientating, saying, what are the sorts of things that would actually generate employment, and particularly generate employment in our sector, that we could invest in? And that's focused people's attention, and we are now creating investable opportunities and are investing as a result of this. In addition, we're out there now telling our members and the community of our role, and to build the trust, to retain the trust and enhance the trust the community has in us in playing a part in the future of that recovery process. I just think that's a really nice example of an integrated response to a challenge that we faced.
Indeed, definitely. And I presume you're also thinking about the environmental and social impacts of those new investments.
Completely. So this is a great opportunity for us to look for investment opportunities that are about energy efficiency, that are about affordable housing, that enable people to get into the housing market, or to be or social housing. So we've very much taken that RI lens to the way we've assessed opportunities, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, David.
Thanks, Carol.